You might be sitting right now, sending out one job application after another, watching each. We've decided to move forward with other candidates. Email chip away a little more of your confidence. Today, I want to tell you Jake's story. This isn't an easy success story. This is a long, painful, but very real journey. Jake Mitchell was 29 years old. He'd spent 7 years at a mid-sized tech company in Chicago, working as a product manager. His life was structured: coffee in hand on the train each morning, home by evening, a paycheck at the end of the month, one small vacation a year. He never imagined this routine would suddenly fall apart. It was an ordinary Wednesday morning. Jake walked into the office, and his director called him into a virtual meeting. Someone from HR was also on the screen, and Jake knew immediately what was coming. The company was going through a major restructuring, cutting costs under pressure from investors. Nearly 40% of Jake's team was being let go, and he was one of them. In that moment, Jake's mind went blank. He just heard the words, "This decision isn't a reflection of your performance," floating past him like an echo from somewhere far away. That same afternoon, he had to return his company laptop and badge, and he drove home, carrying a strange, hollow feeling. In the first week, Jake actually didn't feel bad. He felt a strange sense of freedom. He thought maybe this is the opportunity to find something new. He updated his LinkedIn, polished his resume, and eagerly started applying to job after job. He was confident that with 7 years of experience, someone would hire him quickly. But starting the second week, reality began to set in. Most of the jobs he applied to never responded at all. A few sent short automated rejection emails. We had a highly competitive pool of applicants. The tech industry was going through massive layoffs at the time, and what Jake didn't realize was that thousands of experienced people just like him were competing for the same jobs. In the third week, Jake got his first interview call from a startup. He prepared thoroughly, studying every one of the company's products, rehearsing answers to likely questions. The interview felt like it went well, but 4 days later, a short email arrived. "We've decided to move forward with a candidate whose background more closely aligns with our current needs." 2 months passed. Jake was now sending out 15 to 20 applications a day, but the results stayed nearly the same: silence or rejection. The early optimism slowly faded. In its place came restlessness, and then a deepening sense of hopelessness. Jake noticed he was sleeping in later each morning. The energy he once had to open his laptop and search for jobs now felt impossible to summon. He started asking himself, "Is something wrong with me? Is 7 years of experience just not enough?" His savings account was draining fast. Rent for his Chicago apartment, car payments, health insurance premiums, student loan installments. It all piled pressure onto his shrinking savings. Jake started cutting back, eating out, coffee shop visits, weekend outings with friends. He began avoiding all of it. The hardest part was facing everyone else's questions. At Thanksgiving dinner, his aunt asked, "So, any luck with the job search?" Jake would answer every time with a fake smile. "Things are looking promising, actually." But inside, every question made him feel smaller. His college roommate Bradley had landed a huge promotion in Silicon Valley around the same time, and was posting pictures of a new house on Instagram. Jake knew comparing himself wasn't healthy, but he couldn't stop scrolling, and every post left a quiet ache in his chest. His father, who had once worked in a factory himself, told him one day on the phone, "Back in my day, you took whatever job you could find. You didn't wait for the perfect one." It was said with good intentions, but the words lodged themselves deep in Jake's mind, and he began blaming himself even more. By the 4th month, Jake was going through the hardest stretch of his life. His savings were nearly gone. He struggled to pay rent, once falling a full week behind. He couldn't sleep at night, and during the day, he couldn't find the energy to even get out of bed. He noticed a change in himself that genuinely frightened him. The video games he used to love, the basketball league he used to play in, none of it interested him anymore. When friends texted, he stopped replying. Slowly, he withdrew from everyone around him. One night, deep into scrolling through rejection email after rejection email, Jake suddenly broke down, crying in a way he hadn't since high school. In that moment, he realized he needed help, not just for finding a job, but for his own mental state. The next morning, Jake called Sarah, an old friend from college. He hadn't spoken to Sarah in months, but she was someone he deeply trusted. Jake told her everything: losing his job, rejection after rejection, the financial strain, and the darkness that had been consuming grooming him. Sarah listened carefully, without any judgment. "Jake, you're not the only one going through this. Half the tech industry got laid off this year. This isn't about you failing." That single conversation shifted something inside Jake. For the first time, he felt like someone truly understood. Sarah suggested he talk to a therapist, and even gave him the name of a colleague of her own therapist, who offered sliding scale fees. Jake hesitated at first. In his family, therapy had always been seen as a sign of weakness, but things had gotten hard enough that he agreed. Jake began meeting with a therapist once a week, over video call. The first few sessions were uncomfortable. Talking about his fears, shame, and hopelessness with a stranger wasn't easy, but slowly, he began to understand that these feelings, anxiety, self-doubt, shame, weren't abnormal. They were a natural response to an incredibly difficult situation. His therapist taught him how to separate his thoughts, which ones were real concerns, and which were exaggerated negative thinking. Jake realized he had been treating every rejection as total personal failure, when in reality, it was the outcome of an overly competitive job market with no connection to his actual worth. During this time, Jake started a new habit, a morning walk along Lake Michigan. At first it felt pointless, but gradually he noticed this simple act lightened his mind, made the start of each day feel a little less heavy. A few weeks into therapy, Jake reached an important realization. His therapist asked him one simple question. If failure wasn't a possibility, what would you actually want to build? That question stayed with Jake for days. He'd been good at product management, sure, but he had always been drawn more to data and analytics, finding the stories hidden inside numbers. In college, he'd been fascinated by his statistics courses, but that interest had gotten lost somewhere along the pressures of his career. Jake decided that instead of only applying to the same kind of product manager roles, he would open a new path toward data analytics. He found free courses on YouTube and Coursera and started spending a few hours each day relearning SQL and Python. Jake built structure into his days. A morning walk, then some time job hunting, then a few hours learning new skills, and in the afternoon, therapy, or a short catch-up with friends. This structure had a real positive effect on his mind. Even though he still didn't have a job, the feeling of accomplishing something every day slowly restored some of his confidence. He built a small GitHub portfolio, showcasing his new data projects, analyses of public datasets, small visualizations. His work wasn't polished at first, but he kept improving little by little each day. These small projects brought back a joy in learning that he hadn't felt in a long time. Even without a paycheck, every completed project gave him a sense of accomplishment. Jake realized the most effective way to find a job wasn't just online applications. It was building real connections with people. He pushed past his hesitation and started attending local data analytics meetups around Chicago. The first time he walked into one of these events, he felt deeply uncomfortable. A room full of 20 strangers gathered in the back of a coffee shop, all seeming confident, all seeming successful. But as he started talking, he realized many of them had also gone through unemployment or difficult career transitions at some point. A woman named Catherine told him she'd been laid off 3 times in her career, and each time had ended up somewhere better than before. Jake slowly became a regular at these meetups. Each month he met new people, got feedback on his projects, and gradually built a professional network. Around the 5-month mark, Jake landed an interview at a mid-sized healthcare company for a junior data analyst role, well below his previous position, with much lower pay. He hesitated over whether to even apply, since it felt beneath his level. But after talking with his therapist, he realized that hesitation was just his old pride holding him back. The interview went well. A few days later, the hiring manager called. She didn't offer him the job, but she said, "Your enthusiasm and the projects on your GitHub really stood out. We don't have this exact role open right now, but I'd love to keep you in mind for something coming up in a few months." It wasn't the first rejection Jake had received, but it was the first time someone had specifically wanted to remember him. That same week, Catherine from the meetup group messaged Jake. Her company had a small 6-month contract position open, data cleaning and reporting work. It wasn't the ideal job, no benefits, short term, and the pay wasn't great. But this time, Jake thought about it differently. He thought, this is a door, maybe not the perfect door, but a door nonetheless. He applied, interviewed, and this time, he actually got the offer. When Jake walked into that small office on his first day, he felt a mix of emotions. Relief, gratitude, and a slight discomfort that this wasn't quite his old life. But he remembered his therapist's words. Progress doesn't always look like a straight line up. During that 6-month contract, Jake got the chance to prove himself. He applied his newly learned data skills, proposed new processes for his team that made reporting significantly faster. His manager was impressed with his work. 4 months in, a permanent position opened up at the company, and his manager directly considered Jake for the role, outside the usual competitive process. Jake got his first full-time job in nearly 11 months of unemployment. The pay was slightly lower than his old job, but the work itself was something he genuinely enjoyed. On the first night after getting the job, Jake sat by his apartment window, watching the city lights. He thought back on those 11 months, that first meeting where everything had seemed to end, the countless rejection emails, the late night crying, and then slowly, step by step, the small moves that had brought him here. He realized this journey hadn't just given him a new job, it had taught him how to live with uncertainty, how to ask for help, and how to stop tying his worth to a single job offer letter. If you're going through Jake's darkest months right now, rejection after rejection, self-doubt, that feeling of being completely alone, know this: these feelings are not your weakness. They are a normal response to an incredibly hard and unfair situation. Asking for help isn't weakness. It's courage. Taking small steps, learning something new, even accepting an imperfect opportunity, all of these can slowly pull you out of that darkness. Just like Jake's story, your story might not move in a straight line either, but it will move forward.